Farm Bureau. Trey Biddy joins us right now. He's the publisher at hogsports.com and covering the Razorbacks for a long time. Trey, thanks for some time this afternoon. We've tried to listen to everything that Sam Pittman has said, everything that has been written. I'm sure you've done that on steroids this week, trying to figure out the answer to the question, what about KJ Jefferson? So I ask you, what about KJ Jefferson?
Yeah, just don't know yet. They say he's got to practice Wednesday before they really, before they feel comfortable, I guess, putting him in and with the game plan. I would think that they would probably be willing to extend it since it is such an important position. But we could see Malik Fortin. We could see Malik Hornsby. If KJ doesn't play, then I think we'll see both of those quarterbacks. And as Pittman said, they'll probably go with the hot hand. But your guess is as good as mine right now. Now, obviously, if he hasn't said it's concussion protocol, but he did say after the game that he was hit in the head. My experience with any time that there's something like that, the guy doesn't play next week. And, even if you see him in warm-ups before the game, that's kind of usually part of the process. They warm up before the game and then don't play. So I wouldn't expect to see him based on the language that's been used so far, but we'll see. We'll find out shortly. But right now I would say probably not going to see him. That's just a guess.
Yeah, we were kicking this around a little while, and this is kind of a hypothetical, and I know you can get in trouble when you go down this road. But if KJ Jefferson was cleared medically, like the doctor said he's good to go, do you then say, okay, go be my quarterback the way you've always been my quarterback? Or do you say, okay, good, we're glad he's cleared, but we're going to try and call the game a little bit differently? Because to me, that sets up kind of a scary situation almost. It's like you've got to either trust he's 100% to play the game the way he plays the game, or you just don't play him. Does that make sense?
For me, if it's a situation where we're like, he's cleared to play, but but the sentiment is like, we got to pull back on him, make sure he doesn't get hit or something, then he shouldn't be playing.
Yeah.
When you're talking about ahead, then they shouldn't be playing if you have to pull them back any kind of way.
Trey, we've seen a little bit here and there of Malik Hornsby over the past couple of years.
I don't know if you guys can turn me up on your end a little bit, but it's very quiet in my ears.
Try it again. Hey, Dad.
Trey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I answered your last question exactly because I couldn't hear you very well, but I can hear you now.
What I was going to ask is, we've seen a little bit here and there of Malik Hornsby and then the packages that Arkansas has put together, so we kind of have an idea about what kind of player he is. Malik Fortin, I don't know hardly anything about. I saw him a little bit in the Alabama game last week when he came in there after KJ got hurt. Just give us a little insight into what kind of player he is and what does Arkansas's offense look like if he's behind center?
Yeah, well, he's a walk-on quarterback, and he's different than most walk-on quarterbacks. He was a scholarship player at North Carolina where he signed out of high school, then transferred to South Florida. Things didn't work out for him there, and has transferred to Arkansas. What I can tell you is in spring football, after he arrived, the sentiment with the coaches was that they could work Malik Hornsby at wide receiver more, develop some packages for him more without as much fear because they really liked what they saw out of Malik Fortin. And so he's not your typical – actually, Arkansas has two walk-on quarterbacks. Cade Renfro was a scholarship player at Ole Miss who has transferred to Arkansas. So two walk-on quarterbacks that were scholarship players elsewhere. You don't usually see that very often, but I guess it's a good thing to have. So, but Fortin, he can throw the ball. He's not bad from a mobility standpoint. Now, he's nothing like Malik Hornsby. Hornsby has breathtaking speed. He's probably the fastest player on Arkansas's team. I could see why it made sense in the Alabama game when you're coming from behind to bring in Fortin because he's going to throw the ball better than Hornsby does. Hornsby has had a tendency sometimes to only know one speed when throwing the ball, and it's as hard as he can throw it, whether you're 5 yards away from him or 40 yards away from him, he's going to throw it with the same velocity. He's gotten better at that, but it made sense, I think, to bring Fortin in against Alabama because you're trying to come back from behind. If you're trying to protect a lead, then Malik Hornsby all day. If you're preparing for a game, then I think it also makes sense to prepare Hornsby to be your starting quarterback. He just brings a different dynamic to the game with his speed. He can still throw the ball too. Accuracy and those types of things have not been a problem. It's been, knowing when to put touch on the ball and knowing where to go with the ball sometimes also. But the bottom line is neither of those guys are KJ Jefferson. KJ brings leadership, running ability. He can throw the ball. He's obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, and I think it'll be a downgrade for Arkansas if he's not able to play. I kind of thought something along the lines of a final score of like 31-27 if KJ does play. For other reasons, I don't feel like Arkansas has been entirely in sync. I know they haven't played a four-quarter game this season, not even close to it. But if he's not able to play, then, could be something more like 38-17.
Trey, you actually bring up something that's really fascinating to me with regard to Malik Hornsby, knowing that there needs to be development there. I was thinking back to when KJ Jefferson arrived at Arkansas, and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty watching him early on. I feel like the job that they've done developing him into a quarterback is as good a coaching job for an individual player as we've seen in, I don't know, half a decade or so. Should that give Arkansas fans reason to be excited about Malik Hornsby, seeing how far Jefferson has come from where he began to where he is now, kind of thinking about the future?
Yeah, potentially, yeah. And I think probably your listeners are probably more familiar with Arkansas's starting quarterback than most others because he is from Sardis, Mississippi.
Right.
KJ came to Arkansas. He had a hitch in his throwing motion that had to be corrected, and they obviously fixed that. He got a lot bigger, got stronger, and has just really blossomed into he wasn't a guy that was like raised on a quarterback form. He wasn't the kind of guy that had a personal quarterback coach like so many of the 4- or 5-star quarterbacks that you see out there. But he was a 4-star based largely on his potential, on his ceiling. And so I think he's definitely come to realize a lot of that. And, yeah, I think you're right with Hornsby. Something that Ken Hatfield always said, former Arkansas coach, used to always say is, find me a guy that can run. This is back when everybody's running, wishbone and things
Sure.
like that. Find me a quarterback that can run, and we can teach him how to pass. And so with Hornsby, I mean, he could excel, in my opinion, in a lot of different positions as a wide receiver, a quarterback, a cornerback, anywhere that needs speed. I think he could excel at. But, yeah, I think you're right. I think that there is reason to be encouraged with him because he does have a high ceiling. I don't know if he's ready to go on the road in the SEC in his first start, but maybe a bright future for him. We'll see.
Trey Biddy from hogsports.com on the Farm Bureau guest line. One more thing, Trey. If it weren't for the KJ Jefferson situation, I feel like we would be talking about Arkansas secondary and their inability to handle passing offenses. Obviously, without Jalen Catalon, which was a huge blow to that secondary. They still got to face this Mississippi State offense. And so what about that piece of it? Is there anything that Arkansas can do to improve on the fly in defending the pass?
Yeah, and more so than just the coverage, it has been poor tackling. And Mississippi State throws a lot of short passes, throw to the running back a lot. Against Missouri State, Arkansas gave up 200 yards after contact. Okay, they only gave up 54 rushing yards. So it doesn't take a lot to figure out that they're missing tackles downfield in the passing game on short passes and things of that nature. So Arkansas has got to become a better tackling team. And, you pointed out Jalen Catalon, who was an All-American candidate entering the season, Arkansas's best, maybe their best player, and they've lost him for the season again for the second year in a row. They also have not had Miles Slusher. Slusher had a head injury that forced him to miss some time. He came back for Texas A&M. Immediately his presence was felt. He made 3 stops in the first quarter on third down, but he's been dealing with a calf injury, and he got burned twice against Alabama, just wasn't ready to come back, looked super slow, and they pulled him out of the game because he wasn't ready. And so we'll see if he's ready to go for Mississippi State, but having him would be huge to get him back because I think he's probably the second best player in the secondary. Ladarius Bishop, who's also out for the year at cornerback, a guy that started almost every game for him last year. He's out. They lost Monteric Brown last year to the NFL. They lost Greg Brooks and Joe Fouché to transfer. They've had some issues in the secondary. Now, they brought some guys in. Latavius Brini from Georgia, who started 12 games for Georgia. They brought in Dwight McGlothern, who started, I think, 6 games for LSU as a redshirt freshman last year. So they've added some help also. But to me, just as big as coverage has been tackling. And Arkansas has tried to – they have some really talented pass rushers on this team, and they have tried to single up some of their DBs and bring pressure. And it's, you know, they, I think, are second in the country in sacks right now. Drew Sanders leads the country with, I think 6.5 sacks. So they have gotten to the quarterback, but they've also paid for it. So it's kind of been big plays in terms of sacks and getting into the backfield and disrupting the quarterback, and then also giving up big plays in the passing game because you got guys that are singled up that maybe aren't quite talented enough to be able to do that.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out this